Thanks everybody for joining this program. Going to go over four different flies for caddis flies, starting with the life cycle, starting with the larvae. This is a pretty I don't know if it's how well known it is. JC's Electric Caddis, something a little different that I've seen. I've known John Collins for years. He's a demonstration tire at many of the shows, retired steam fitter, and a guide on the South Branch at Raritan, and professional fly tire and ties for many of the shops in our Catskill area and in the New Jersey area. So, and this is a very effective fly, gets down deep, and it's made with materials that I've seen many years ago using vinyl tubing. They call it stretch tubing back in the late 80s and early 90s when it was designed to use it just to get the segmentation, and others actually sucked fluids through, like either the clear one or off clear colored water or oils through there to give it a more of a realistic look. John puts a colored copper wire through the micro tubing, and the copper wire that he's using is a fine copper wire, and it's colored. I find usually you cut 10 inches off of the tubing, 10 inches off of the copper wire, and you thread it through. Now, it can be a chore. You got to wiggle it back and forth. I found an easier way to do it by just coating the copper wire with Vaseline and sliding it through. So that'll be that's it. And what I do is about a 10-inch piece will get me 2 or 3 flies out of that, depending on the size. And this size could be tied in 12s all the way down to 16 or 18. So it could be tied in any size. But it's a realistic looking pattern. The chartreuse is the one that John Collins uses, that he's known for. So that he uses colored copper wire, and also what they do is they vary the color of the copper wire to match the color of the tubing. Today, I'm using the chartreuse on my Facebook page and also on the Fly of the Month for Fly Tires International. This is going to be featured in one of the months with a step-by-step on how to do it, and I'll send out the step-by-step to everybody. But the color tubing usually tries to match the copper wire as close as possible. I've even just used regular copper wire uncolored in the darker color so that it would shine through and give a nice ribbing for it. So this is the JC Electric Caddis. So this is a curved shank hook caddis style larvae hook. If you want the brand that I'm using is a Dirichi. It's a heavy wide gap scud hook, and this is a size 14, and the model number is 1120. So that's to get to know what I'm using. I've got the hook in my Norvise using the fine point vice jaws. Most of the flies that are tied for trout, I would use the fine point. First thing I'm going to use is a 70 denier chartreuse thread. And I'm not going to go right up against the eye. I'm going to tie it in cut the tag off. And then I'll wind the thread down to where what would be considered a gap where the shank bend would be. Scud hooks are really not as easy for that. It's like we would always say, it's the bend of the hook always starts by the barb of the hook. What we try to do is do a 30-degree angle from the bar, from the right there. That would be about a 30-degree angle. That would be as close to what the shank bend is. And now I'll bring the thread back up. Now that I've marked where the bend of the hook is going to be, I will now put the thread, line it up with the right in the middle of the barb and the point of the hook. I will take a strand of Antron yarn. This is fluorescent lime green Antron yarn. It's the same as chartreuse. I'll have a strand. I'll have a strand, some hanging over the eye of the hook. This is going. I'm going to be folding this back this way to help give a tapered body silhouette. And then I'll just run the thread and pull the Antron yarn along the shank of the hook and stop at my stopping point. And then bring the thread back up, fold this over. Now I have like a tapered body foundation. I'm just going to add a thread body foundation here to just build it up just a bit. And now I'm going to get ready for the tubing, which already has the copper wire slid through it. The tubing, just the green, dark green tubing, it's just stretch tubing, micro. And I just take very fine copper wire. I leave a little bit of the wire sticking out. I'm going to secure this right on the top and clamp down to make sure that wire doesn't slip out when I start to wrap it. And now I'm going to run the thread tight just on the shank of the hook. And then get my thread out of the way. And the first wrap, these are touching wraps. This is pretty, and they are tight right now. Trying to get them one next to each other, touching wraps. And then as I get towards the thorax, I'm going to loosen these up a bit so that it'll have a nice taper. Secure it off. take scissors that, not your good scissors, but just take, or wire cutters at this point. Making sure you don't cut your thread. Now I have some extra for the next fly. And then you got to really make sure that the copper wire is still in there, because it actually climbed, with all the stretching, it actually climbed all the way back up to here. So I would cut it and get that ready for the next fly. So now I'll bury whatever's in here, bring the thread to where the hook point is for the thorax. I'm going to put 2 ostrich hurls in, brown. It's just brown ostrich hurl. I took 2 of the hurls out off the feather. And I'm going to trim the butts off. Get my thread a little bit out of the way. I'm going to take one at a time. When I take the ostrich hurl, I'm winding this just like a dry fly, so that the barbules stick perpendicular to the hook shank. Y2, trying to make it fuller looking. Any spots that I crushed, I could fill in with the second one. Stroke them back. Take my lighter. Burn the top. Take some UV resin. Just get ready to put it on here. Going to whip finish it before I zap it. Put my thread away.
Jerry, are you using a wooden skewer to
I'm using
apply that?
I'm using a toothpick.
Toothpick. Thank you, sir.
Because coming right out of the container would just be an awful mess. So I empty some of it. I put a drop on a piece of Post-it paper so that I could get that look, nice and look. It's not tacky now. And then I reach in with my scissor and just put a small tail. Doesn't have to be big. That's how small that tail is. That's the fly. There's the wing case. This thing will drop real quick in the water, slightly weighted because of the copper wire. So, all right, the next fly is really an adaptation of Gary LaFontaine's Caddis pupa. Simplified just a bit. It's more using. You're still using the Antron yarn for the shell, a dubbing fur in the middle, brown fur for the thorax, the head, and but the difference here is the soft hackle, the partridge feather, wound as a soft hackle pattern. It's just a guide fly, works great. It's quick to tie. And I think everybody gets a little intimidated by doing the shell on how to make the bubble. All right. I'm using a 1X long, strong, 1X strong, 1X long, size 12, Daiichi 1560 hook. It's a wet fly nymph hook, so it's 1X long. I'm going to tie this in a olive color. So I will switch over to an olive color thread. Still, this is about an 8/0, close to 70 denier. I want to keep some bareness of the shank over here. So I want the abdomen is going to stop around over here. So I'm going to just put a thread base down. Remember what I said, the barb always lines up with the shank of the bend of the hook. So I'm taking a spool. This is just a spool of Antron yarn, olive color. I'm going to cut 2 strips right from the spool. It'll just be better for me. It'll look nicer. It's a bigger hook.
Hey, Jerry, what sizes can you tie this? And I know you've got a 12 there, but what does it range?
Go all the way down to 18. You can go to 10 to 18. So I'm going to tie one side on the far side. And on the near side. So the object here is you want to make sure some of this gets tangled. So you want to make sure that this is all. Let me straighten that out. It had some tangles in it. So what I want to do is take my bodkin and run it through to make sure there's no knots in there. I want this so that when it inflates, it'll look like a bubble. So let me get that in. I also want to make sure that this wraps around the shank of the hook on the side, like 180 degrees. I'm not worried about what's sticking out because that's going to get covered by the bubble. So I got this here. Let me just make sure this one's all done. Boy. Okay, that's all nice and relaxed now. All right, so I got far side and near side. Now I'm just going to take, you can take any dubbing you want. I'm going to take a sparkle dubbing, and I'm using a Semper Fly sparkle dubbing, and this one is a dark olive for there. I could either go dark olive or light olive. I'm just going to take a few strands, make sure it's all broken up. I'm not making a tight noodle, just putting it on. Gary LaFontaine would have put wax, and he would have touch dubbed it when he taught this fly. And then you just wrap it. Now that the thread is at the abdomen, I'm going to take a loose turn, 2 loose turns, and put the thread behind the eye of the hook. I'm going to bring over the 2. Put a loop, touch loop right at the eye of the hook, and secure that in place. So now that I got, then I'm going to take the 2 and just open them up. Let me show you again. Got all this to the back. I take loose wraps right to the eye of the hook. I take the two strands. And make this a little manageable by trimming this. I don't need that much sticking out. I'm going to take the 2 strands. I'm going to put a tight wrap there. Remember, this is all loose behind it. I'm going to take this and pull. Now I got a bubble. And then I can cut this off. And if you want, you could pick these out a little bit better. Now really secure this in place right at where the abdomen is. Now I'll take a partridge feather. I'll stroke the fibers back, leaving me a little triangle. This does make it easier just cutting and then tying this right. There. This is now secure. Get my hackle pliers. I just wet my index finger and thumb, and I'm just going to stroke the fibers backwards so that when I wrap this, they lean towards the bend of the hook. 2 wraps, keep stroking. So I got 2 good wraps. I'm going to take my thread, secure this in place, secure the feather. secure that in place. All these fibers will go back. Now I'll take some dark brown fur in this, and I'm still using the Semper Fly sparkle. Just breaking it up a bit. Going to use this brown for the head, the thorax. Start towards the behind the eye and start building back a bit so I can come on. All right, let me get some more fur or dubbing on 100% fur in this case.
Hey, Jerry, sorry for asking a dumb one. What's the difference between fur and dubbing?
Between fur and what? I didn't hear you.
Dubbing.
It's the same. Fur is from an animal. So if I say this really isn't fur, this is an Antron sparkle dubbing from Semper Fly. So it's all, this is all, Antron is really rug material. Fibers that make rugs, was making rugs. Alrighty. Whereas natural fur is from an animal. Dubbing is, could either be natural fur or synthetic. All right. And I use the terms a little loosely on that. All right. That's the fly. A lot of Antron sparkle stuff out of here. You could basically preen some of this stuff off. But when a caddis is breaking through, there's just so much activity from its the gases that it produces, that when you fish this gets wet, that Antron shell gets wet. This actually looks really like one of the pupas racing to the top. If you really want to, you could put a trailing shuck in here by just cutting some fibers in the top. And then pull that back a bit. You'll have some fibers back there. All right. I know I've shown this fly maybe 100 times already. This is Altroth's Elk Hair Caddis. I'm tying it as durable as he did. This thing will withstand many fish. Their teeth won't break the hackle. It's a high floating fly to be skidded around the surface. So all I'm doing is this is small gold wire. That's going to be my rib. And this fly is also in one of the patterns for the Silver Award fly tying award from the fly tying group for Fly Fishers International. All right. So I got the copper wire. Now I'm going to dub a body. Normally I would just use hare's ear mask, just as fine. I'm going to switch over to a trying this for the first time, some brown kapok from Semper Fly. Kapok is what is used for fishing vests, life-saving vests, I should say. When it first came out, it's a plant material. When it first came out, it was really difficult to dub. They've actually improved the process. Semper Fly did. So you want to take a little bit at a time, tight dub this. This stuff will float. And once it, like I said, it's plant-based. So I got a nice tight noodle. So the Elk Hair is a reverse taper. It's thicker at the bend, but as you go towards the eye, it gets thinner. So this stuff isn't pretty bad. It really goes on really nice. And I'm going to stop it give myself room because I'm going to tie on a hackle and elk hair. So let me get the hackle. Just using a brown hackle. You can use any color you want. Dun, grizzly. Tying it in by the stem. Here's the tip, shiny side facing. This is the shiny side facing the eye of the hook. This is nice and secure in here. If I really wanted to make it even more secure, I would bend it and tie it so it would be like a shepherd's hook. So I'm going to cut the stem off.
Why are you putting the shiny side toward the eye of the hook?
Well, when this thing wraps around, all right, these barbs are going to canter towards the bend of the hook. This is a cup. It has a cup when it goes in. So when this bends, my hackle pliers, so I would take 2 turns right in the front. All right. So what happens is these fibers would be bending towards that direction, like a cup. All right. So that would help hold it up on the water. So now
Makes sense, thanks.
I'm glad you believe that, because the actual truth is when you pick up a fly out of a fly bin, the shiny side facing forward, first thing a person does when they pick a fly out of a fly bin, they hold it by the bend of the hook and they look down the eye, correct? So now you got this beautiful coloring pointing towards your eyes. That was the major reason why it was tied that way. They didn't think of the curvature. They thought of sellability, making it pretty. So I ribbed it, palmer rib through the body. Then I take the the gold wire, and I'll take 2 turns right at the bend of the hook. 1, 2. This is now secure in there. Then I wiggle this copper wire crossing over each stem, each rib to secure that. And as I'm wiggling it, I'm trying not to trap any of the barbules that are sticking out. So now when a fish goes to bite this, if he does break the stem, the copper wire will hold it in place. Okay? 2 wraps behind, the gold wire is now secure. Just helicopter it, break it off. Cut that part off, the extra piece sticking out. Now I'm taking some elk hair that I stacked, cut and stacked. That's about how much I took. It's almost like, if you want to look at it like almost like a gap thickness. I stacked it. I'm taking out some of the short hairs already. I'm lining up the tips not to extend past the bend of the hook. I'm holding it. Pinch method. Thread goes in between my thumb, index finger, pull, thumb, index finger, pull it up, pull it up, pull it straight up, put a couple, then torque it down. Then I'll take 1/3 of this butts and run one pass of thread through, take a second pass through, take the final, and wrap that, make the head and whip finish. And cut the thread. Then I'll take all these butts, take my scissor, I'll line it up with the eye of the hook at that angle, cut. Now I got a nice head. Any of the fibers, just give a pull up. What I did was, if you look at it, I got a nice tent shape now. The elk hair doesn't go below the body, so that cups that. If you actually look at a natural on the water, you'll see the wings like that will be folded over. If the caddis isn't moving around, caddis don't sit still very much. They skitter all over the place when they're on the water trying to break free. But that's the silhouette. That elk hair is all around it. You can see that for a mile when you're on the water. That's what's great about that. This hair's not coming out because when I tied it in thirds, each wrap of thread secures it in place. And then what you would do is put a drop of head cement right on the wraps there. The next one is an extremely easy fly to tie, and that's X Caddis. This was tied by Greg Matthews, Blue Ribbon Fly shop in West Yellowstone. It's on the same concept of the Sparkle Dun. Sparkle Dun is a Comparadun, but the only difference is the tail is Antron yarn. So once again, I'm using a dry fly hook. The other one was a dry fly hook, size 14 also. So the same thing, dry fly hook, Daiichi 1170. This is in size 14. I'm just going to put a coat of thread base on the shank of the hook so that the Antron yarn, when I tie it in, doesn't wrap all over the place, go on the far side. This will add a friction base to the fly. All I'm using, this is a card of Antron yarn. This one just happens to be Orvis Antron yarn tan. All right. So I would take, I don't need a lot. I just need one strand. I'm going to catch it. I'm going to write it on the top of the shank of the hook. If you've noticed what I was doing, I'm pulling this towards me so that every time I wrap, the torque of the thread will keep it on the top of the shank of the hook. So that's, give a good tug. That is right there, nice and straight with the shank of the hook. I'm just cutting this right now. I could cut more later when we're done, but this is the beauty of this fly. It works great, especially on pools, slow moving water. Only 3 materials: the Antron yarn, dubbing fur, and a wing. And you just vary the color to match your natural for whatever you're fishing that day. Just hold the tail when you put your first couple of wraps at dubbing. And once again, it is a reverse taper. All right, just and I'm building the body as I go. For those that haven't tied with this material, the K-Pock from Simply Fly, Semper Fly, I would equate it to like tying with muskrat. That's how fine it is. And I like tying with natural furs such as muskrat. So I'm going to stop exactly the way I would with any other Elk Hair Caddis. No hackle. That's what's the beauty of this fly. Just putting this fur away so I don't lose it. Once again, I don't like to go past the bend of the hook. So I will aim right at the end of where the bend is. Secure this right into place again. Pull it up, pinch, pull, pinch, pull. 1/3, 1/3. Whip finish. Scissors back out, hold the butts up, line it up with the shape, with the eye of the hook, angle, trim, 2 fibers I didn't catch. Just pull the wing up a bit. That's all it is. And
Jerry,
if you want,
why does it go in that order? I mean, why this is the last one in regard to the life cycle?
well, the last 2 were adults. All right. I just wanted to show you 2 of the adults on here. This could also look like a spent version, the final stage. But the Antron yarn is actually for when it's coming out. I think not too many people hear it. They hear X Caddis, they want to know what it is. So I'm trying to show you what the X Caddis is. It's just another variation. Yeah, those are the, I wanted to show 2 different types of adults, basically, what covers the adults. Whereas the Elk Hair Caddis, to me, is right as it's trying to leave the water. It's skidding, it's being popped all over the place. Where this one could also be as it's ready to lay its eggs. So those are the different things that this could imitate. The last one. All right. I hope you enjoyed the program, and I'll be sending out what the next one is. All right.
Thank you, Jerry.
You're welcome, everybody.
Yeah, thanks.
Have a great evening. I hope you enjoyed this and get to use these flies. They are like my favorite caddis imitations. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All righty. Bye.
Thanks, Jerry. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye. Have a good evening.
You too.